Well, I'm really excited today to be talking with Jessica Karwat, and she is a transformational coach, not just for anybody, but for vegan women or women who want to become vegan and use the vegan lifestyle as a way to transform. And she has worked with, I don't even know how many people you've worked with. How many has it been, Jessica?
Over 200 women at this point.
Over 200 women that you have helped them to transform their lives. And I do encourage people to go to your website, and we'll be putting that in the show notes, because I was looking at all the pictures of the transformation that so many women went through when they worked with you. So let's start with, first of all, thank you for being on the show. And when did you first become vegan?
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Get ready to hear from doctors, nutritionists, experts, and everyday men and women committed to creating a powerful life in mind, body, and soul through ethical food choices. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
It's gonna be 5 years now, which sounds unreal for me. So actually, I went vegan right after Christmas 5 years ago. So it's gonna be my birthday, my vegan birthday.
Well, happy birthday. And 5 years, a big deal. I'm coming up on 5 years in a little while, but yeah, and it went by very quickly. I never realized how much my life would change as a result of it. And what was the catalyst for you becoming vegan?
Yeah, so for some reason, deep within me, I always felt that something wasn't right about eating meat. So there was a time in my life when I was like, a teenager, and I wanted to be vegetarian. So I tried that because I just felt like something was wrong with eating animals. But back then I was living at my mom's place, so I really didn't have a lot of control over what I was eating. My mom was still very supportive, but long story short, I went back to eating meat. And a couple of years later, I started to have some health struggles. I started to have really bad acne all over my face and digestive issues. And I started to do research because for 2 years, I wanted to heal myself. And I tried different pills and diets and all of those things, and nothing was helping. And I was very frustrated because being a young woman, having really bad acne that's painful all over your face, just wasn't really nice, right? And I just felt like something was really off. And so I started doing more research, and I stumbled across so many people talking about the vegan diet. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, but I'm not sure if that's really the thing. I've tried so many things. And then, I did more research, and then I saw videos about animal agriculture. And I was like, wow, this is not what I, wanted to see and what I didn't know was happening. And so I remember in my bed crying my eyes out, seeing this, because I always considered myself, an animal lover, but here I am not doing it that way. Right. And so overnight I decided, you know what, I'm going to go vegan. And funny enough, within a couple of months, my acne completely disappeared. It was gone. When my mom saw me, she was like, what did you do? And I was like, I went vegan. And so, yes, I went vegan for the animals, but when I saw what it also did to my health, I was like, this is, the best decision I could have ever made in my life.
Absolutely. And from what I saw on your website and the research I've done, you're a plant-based vegan, which, I know a lot of vegans that are junk food vegans, and they're just as unhealthy as carnivores who eat junk food. And so there's a real distinction between a vegan and a junk food vegan and a healthy vegan. And I saw your own transformation. You have pictures on your website of your own transformation of just, really toning up and having a very vibrant life. And when you work with the people that you work with, who would you say is the ideal candidate for your transformation program?
I love this question because I myself, when I went vegan, I was a junk food vegan because I couldn't believe that there was so much vegan stuff out there. I was like, what, vegan burgers and donuts? I can eat all of that. So I was like totally junk food vegan for the first, I would say, year. The people that come to me, the majority of the women that I work with are already vegan and mostly fit into the category of like junk food vegan, but not knowing how to eat vegan, feeling like they truly want to be vegan for the animals, but struggle with themselves, struggle with digestion, also have eating disorders. So for me, you know, the vegan, of course, is the focus. Like I work mainly with vegan women. So if a woman comes to me, she's like, I'm not vegan, I don't want to go fully vegan, I'm going to tell her I'm not going to help you because I don't even know how to help you. Like everything that I do is vegan. But what I coach women in is so much deeper because I truly want them. I feel like vegan women, they already, because they're vegan, they truly care about others, the animals, the world. And a lot of times I tend to see women forgetting about themselves and having a hard time really putting themselves first and taking care of their own well-being. And so I always say, like, you are a walking billboard in a way, right? So if you truly care about animals and you want to change the world, what a better way to change it than to show people, hey, I'm vegan, I feel great, I look great, I have so much energy. And so for me, this is my type of vegan activism. And I've, you know, there were so many people that started to talk to me and are like, how do you have so much energy? How did your skin clear up? And I was like, I went vegan. And so they're curious about it. And maybe, yes, I'm not touching them yet with the animal aspect of it.
Right.
But that's enough for me. Like, that's how you change the world ultimately, right? So yeah, I went on a tangent here, but I hope
No,
that makes sense.
I actually love that because it first of all, I want to remind people you're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage. I'm talking with Jessica Karwat, and she is a transformation coach for women who are vegan, who want to actually be their best and show compassion to the animals. And it's interesting because just this weekend, you know, we're coming up on the holiday season, and I was getting some gifts wrapped. I went out and did some shopping, and I had this woman, she had a fundraiser table, and she was wrapping my gifts. So we started chatting about rescue animals, and I have dogs, cats, I've got chickens, I've got horses who are all rescues. And so we're getting into this real deep conversation about how much she loves animals. And, oh yeah, that's why I rescue dogs. And she was going on and on. And I said, after about 10 minutes, because the whole time she's wrapping my gifts. And then I thought, okay, here's my opportunity to see how much she loves the animals. And it's not that she doesn't love them. She just has not connected the dots, because I said, well, you know, my love of animal goes into what I don't eat, which I don't eat any animals. And she took a step back as if I had just touched her with a hot poker. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she goes, oh, I'm not that radical. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting. Here for 10 minutes, we're talking about loving the animals, but it doesn't move into what you consume and what's on your plate. And she made a comment. She goes, I only buy grass-fed beef, and I only buy the ones that are, you know, by small farmers and all that. And I said, well, that's good. I said, you know, whatever works for you is fine. And in my mind, I thought, well, at least I've planted the seed. You know, it's like we can only do what we can do. But with the women that you work with, what is the age group? What your sweet spot age group of women that you work with?
First of all, I love your story. I love when you plant a seed, because planting seeds is, I feel like, the key. Like, I know that this was also a process for me, because I remember when I met a vegan for the first time, I had the exact same reaction. I was like, she's crazy.
No.
I was like, she's weird. Like, what a hippie. Like, that was my reaction.
Right.
You know, and here I am a couple of years later going vegan myself. So it has an effect on you in some kind of way. So I love that story. Age groups. So usually I would say between the age of 25 to 45. That's usually that I work with. Of course, sometimes I have younger women, I have elderly women. I never say no. But usually, you know, because of where they're at, also because I work with the menstrual cycle a lot, it's usually a better time to learn these things during this time.
Let's talk a little bit about the menstrual cycle, because I'm actually going to be 69 on my next birthday. And I look at women my age and I go, if only you knew what the secret to youthful living is, you'd probably make a change. Thank you. Thank you. I'm a little over a year away from 70 years old. And I'm like,
Wow.
how did that happen? Oh my gosh. But it's like, I actually have had women say to me, oh, when you get older, you'll understand why I feel the way I feel. And I said, I'm probably older than you. How old are you? And they'll say, oh, 63, 64, 65. And it's like, I'm considerably older. So it's not the chronological age, it's our emotional age. It's what we put into our body. But with the whole menstrual cycle, how connected is consuming animal and dairy products? How connected is it to a problem with the menstrual cycle? And then going one step beyond endometriosis, because endometriosis is something that's very common today. And I actually had it when I was 21, I think was the first time. So we're going back, about 48 years when I had endometriosis. They didn't even have a name for it. So I see it a lot nowadays. And how prevalent is what people eat, what women eat, to having bad menstrual cycles and endometriosis?
Yeah, thank you for asking me this question. So one thing that I'm still very surprised about, when I first stumbled across that topic of the menstrual cycle, everything that I read or saw always included animal products. And I was like, why? Like, why are these women being told to consume dairy and to eat meat, where dairy is highly inflammatory, where meat is full of antibiotics, and all of that messes with your menstrual cycle? Your menstrual cycle is your fourth vital health sign. If your cycle is not healthy, you're not healthy. It's literally the foundation of it all. Having a healthy ovulation, having a healthy cycle is the foundation of women's health. And more people are starting to catch up to it. But things like burnouts, those illnesses, endometriosis, PCOS, all of that doesn't just appear out of nowhere. That's how our society is built. We as women, we are pushing so hard every day. We try to live up to expectations and live in this very, go mentality. And that is really messing with our hormonal health, with our stress levels, with our cycle. And so on top of that, putting animal products into our body is doing the complete opposite of what's going to really help us. Because as I said, like, dairy is extremely inflammatory. Anything that causes inflammation, processed foods, dairy, is not going to help your menstrual cycle. It's going to make it even worse. So menstrual cycle problems, it's a combination of nutrition, but also of stress, of trauma, of anything that ever happened in your life. We as women, we hold on to it on an energetic level. But thinking even a step further, for example, when you eat meat, you're not only eating meat, you're eating the pain of the animal, you're eating
Absolutely.
the energy of the animal. So that, in a way, also, like, I literally have chills even talking about this, because to me, it was never so obvious. But you're eating the pain of the animal, you're eating the energy of the animal. So healing yourself from endometriosis and PCOS, which, by the way, is possible with the right nutrition and the right healing work. You can heal yourself from it. Most doctors will tell you cannot, and most doctors will put you on a pill or will prescribe any medication, but will not tell you about nutrition at all, or the trauma work. So, long story short, I'm very glad that I'm able to help women sync with their cycles through vegan nutrition. And actually taking it a step further, our menstrual cycle is not only our period. We actually go through 4 phases in the menstrual cycle. And in each of those phases, our body needs different nutrients. And so when we learn how to give our bodies the different nutrients with plant-based food, there's nothing better that you can do for your body, for women's health, because you're literally priming your body and helping your body prepare for ovulation, prepare for the premenstrual phase, prepare for the bleed, right? Because also when you have a period, we're letting go of a lot of blood, we're losing nutrients. So when we learn how to nourish our bodies, things like endometriosis and PCOS are going to be less likely to develop. because we're giving our body exactly what it needs, So this is a very long, like I could talk about this forever because it's a very
I love what you said about that we take in the pain of the animals, because so many people who are spiritual, they say we're all one, we're all connected. And then, they say that on the one hand, and on the other hand, they're consuming animals who have gone through a lot of pain and suffering. And this is not a judgment call. This is just a call of maybe they haven't had their awareness raised to the point that they really connect the dots. Because when I finally got it, I initially started out as a plant-based eater. I would not call myself vegan. I didn't want to be a crazy vegan. I thought they were all radicals and all that. And well, we're kind of radical, but I was about 6 months into my journey of being a plant-based eater when I was at the grocery store walking by the meat department, and I literally stopped in my tracks and I felt all the pain and suffering. And I had just an experience of, it was visceral, and it was like I felt so guilty and so bad for all that I had done all those years. And then I had to go through a forgiveness. And so, what you're saying about the pain and suffering is so true, that whatever you consume, that energetically becomes a part of what you're going to put out into the world. And before we go any further, Jessica, how can people find you? What's the best web address that they can go to? And I know you've got all your Instagram and you've got a lot of stuff up that they can find on your website. So what would be that address?
Yes, the address is www.Women's Academy of Transformation. That's a very long name. .com. So you will also find me on Instagram. I have currently 2 Instagrams. I'm growing a second one. So my primary one right now is I am Jessica Karwat, and the second one is Jessica Karwat. So you will find those 2 linked, and you can contact me on there. You will find everything that I do as well on there. And I also have my own podcast, which is called the Plentiful Goddess Podcast. So I also talk a lot about those topics, the menstrual cycle, vegan nutrition, all of that on there as well.
Well, and we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And, it's so amazing because, truth be told, when I was younger and I thought of women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and, I'm not too far away from that, I thought of frumpy, I thought of overweight, I thought of, no energy, depression, because that's what I saw. And what I've come to realize is there's a whole different experience that we can have based on what we put into our body. And I know on your website, I really like some of the recipes you have up. You said, okay, here's what you can have for your morning smoothie. You pick, a cup or 2 from the fruits and then from the greens. And then you really get into the specifics of it. So let's say that somebody is listening to this and they say, okay, I'm ready to go through that transformation. And I am vegan, but I'm a junk food vegan. What's the experience they will have with you, Jessica? Like, how do you onboard people, and what can they expect moving forward?
Yeah, I have to say that because I had an eating disorder myself, and I had a very unhealthy relationship with food for a very long time in my life, the way that I approach nutrition and diets and weight loss and whatever the goal is of the client is through a very holistic approach, right? So whenever a client joins my program, I always tell them, this is not about restriction. This is about continuing to incorporate your favorite meals into your diet, into the meals that you love, right? Which means when you get a meal plan from me, you will have things on there like a vegan burger, a vegan pizza, pasta, all of those things that are on the plant-based side. So they're still nutritionally created that way that you're getting everything that you need, and they're extremely nutritious. But at the same time, you feel like you're actually not on a diet, or you're not eating salad all day long. But a lot of times I hear from clients, they're like, I didn't know I could eat so much and I'm losing weight and I feel so great and I'm not missing anything and I no longer crave anything and I no longer want the junk food stuff because it just makes me feel so good. And that's literally the goal, where you feel like if you want to go to have, I don't know, a vegan donut, learn how to incorporate that. It's not about restriction, because restriction is one of the worst things that you can do, where, people just feel like, maybe you notice about yourself, the more you restrict yourself of something, the more you can't stop thinking about it.
Right.
And the more that you want it. That's how human psychology works. So instead of putting people into your mindset of restriction, it's about balance. And one of my favorite things that I love to teach my clients is the 80-20 rules. Like, 80% nutritious food, food that makes you feel good, vibrant food, right? Where you know, like, hey, when I eat that, I feel great. And 20% happiness food, whatever it is that you want to try. If it's the vegan ice cream, if it's the vegan cake, learn to incorporate that. This way you will not ever feel restricted, but you're gonna 80% of the time nourish your body with good food. And that is ultimately the goal, because perfection doesn't exist. So
right. And the only exception to that in my life would be my recovery. I'm in recovery for drugs and alcohol. That's a black and white. It's like I don't mess with that at all. And early on I was trying the near beer and all that, and it was just too much of a trigger. But I get what you're saying about that there are certain things we have to give ourselves permission to enjoy, as long as we're really clear on our goals. And I'd love to talk to the older women. You work primarily with 25 to 45, but what about women who are in their 50s, 60s and moving into, really being in the elder, I'm an elder, oh my gosh, but moving into that age group, it's like, what can you say to women my age that really they've given up and they just think this is the way it is? What can they do to get started on the path to having a healthier, more vibrant life?
Yeah, I love this question because I've had women that were 50 and older. One of my favorite clients, I loved her. Her name is Kanita. She was older than 50 years and she loved everything about the program. She lost weight. She looked great. She felt great. And she's awesome. And one foundation of it all, the reason why so many people struggle with feeling better and going on this journey and putting themselves first is not because they don't know how to do it. We know how to eat healthier, how to make the healthier choices. We know movement is good for us, but it's about the beliefs that we have about ourselves. We have been living in misery, let's call it, in so long that we no longer think about ourselves that we are capable of becoming this person. So the work that we do as well is like very deep rooted. We go deep into the self-image of the image that we hold of ourselves. And it's a summary of all of the experiences that you had in your life, even the childhood that you had, and the traumas that you had. Everything forms your self-image. And so this is always the first step to go to your self-image and ask yourself, what am I thinking about myself? What am I saying to myself every day? And really start working on that first to create a new outlook, to see, like, look at you, like you I never would have said that you're at this age. You look incredible. You're so vibrant. You're so energetic. And it's because you have shifted your self-image, right? I don't know a lot about your past, but what you just told me, I would have never guessed, but that shows to me you've done a lot of this work, right? You've shifted this, and you're the living example that it's possible for you to start believing in yourself again, to create a new life, that it's not over yet. And so that's the foundation of it all. And then the second point that I would definitely say, women that are in perimenopause, moving into menopause, there are certain things that you can do with your nutrition that are going to help you feel a little bit better, because a lot of times what we see with women moving into menopause is that, of course, their bodies no longer produce estrogen, their body composition changes, so they start to accumulate more fat around their midsection. In order to avoid that, slight nutritional changes need to be made, especially if for the majority of your life you haven't been eating or paying attention to food that much. So one thing that definitely is very good to do when you are in perimenopause and menopause is to increase your healthy fat and your healthy vegan protein intake, right? So making sure that you eat more of that, less processed, less bread, less of those simple carbohydrates, and more healthy fats and more protein. And continuing, I don't know if you work out, but I think you do move your body a lot. Doing any type of resistance training, right? Strength training and starting slow. Resistance training is really good for bone density as well, for your health, overall health. And so the earlier you can start, the better. So resistance training can even be just working with your body. It doesn't have to be with heavy weights or anything like that. But putting some type of resistance on your body is also super, super helpful.
Wonderful. And, I want to make a little detour here, and it goes back to women who do have menstrual cycles and infertility. That has become a huge issue, not just for women, but for men too. Their sperm count is down. Erectile dysfunction is a big issue, and they're starting to trace all that to what they're consuming, that they're consuming inflammation-producing foods. So with infertility, I know people that are spending a fortune to to have that baby. And if they would just change the way they eat, a lot of them would solve the problem. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I see that so often. I work with women that have irregular cycles, that had maybe their period once a year. And it makes me so sad to see that doctors, again, put them on birth control or prescribe them any type of medications instead of actually looking at the cause and looking at the root cause, and not just putting, a blister on an open wound that needs stitching.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that I love and that is changing women's lives is cycle syncing, which means when you learn about your menstrual cycle and you learn about those 4 phases that I mentioned before, what you can do is, as I said, not only adapt your nutrition to your cycle, but also adapt your training to your cycle, adapt your lifestyle to your cycle. So the more that you learn this, the more that you work with your, changes as well, hormonal changes, with your energetic changes, the more you're working with your body and not against it. Right? Because a big chunk, and I would say definitely 50 to 60% is the nutrition aspect. And the rest is definitely what is going on within a woman, right? How is she feeling? How are her stress levels? What has she experienced in her life? How is she connected to herself? A lot of women are completely disconnected from themselves. And of course, the more, let's say, you hate yourself or you don't have that self-love,
Mm-hmm.
the less likely you're going to eat good food, the less likely you're going to nourish yourself. So it really is, it's 2 ways to look at it, because when we only tell women like, oh yeah, eat more plant-based food and eat vegan food and be healthier, that approach a lot of times scares women more away, because they know, like, we know an apple is healthier than fries. We know it. Why do so many people not do it? And actually, maybe you're familiar with it, The Biggest Loser, the TV show.
Oh yeah.
Right. I think we all know it. I looked upon, I looked it up and I wanted to see, okay, how many people are actually really successful with the weight loss?
Right.
And I was shocked, because 2/3 of the people that lose weight gain it back on after the show is done, and 1/3 gain even more weight back on. So what does this mean for us? Yes. What does it mean for us? That they're not approached the right way. They're told to do those very strict diets, those very strict regimes, but they're not asking them that, like, how are you actually feeling?
Right.
You've recover yourself, that it's not just about, you have to go deeper. You have to understand, like, what is really going on? Like, why did you go there in the first place? What happened? Like, let's heal all of that stuff so that you actually want to take care of yourself. You actually want to nourish your body, and you actually love yourself to a point where you want to do these things for you.
I love it. I love what you're doing, Jessica. And I want to remind people to go to Women's Academy of Transformation.com, Women's Academy of Transformation.com. We'll put that in the show notes. And, I absolutely love what you're doing. I love your philosophy on the energy of food. And it's really an uphill battle for a lot of people, because the food manufacturers, they make the foods addictive. I mean, they have scientists that actually get to the bliss point where they want to know right when that brain function goes and it says, oh, this is better than cocaine, which some foods are more addictive than cocaine. And when you tell that to people, they say, oh, that's all conspiracy theory. It's like, no, it's not. Do your homework, do your research, follow people like Jessica. And I encourage people, go to Instagram, follow Jessica, and you'll find all her links on her website. You'll see some great transformation pictures. You'll see some recipes. And if you're really at that place where you want to make that change, reach out to her. Jessica, this has been delightful. I so appreciate what you're doing, and I'm so aligned with a lot of the way that you're viewing the world. And, I hope that no matter what age people are that are listening to this, that they really get, you can make a change, but it's a deep, deep job to do. It's not just changing what's on your plate. It's really changing your mindset. It's changing your view of the world, and it's changing the people you surround yourself with. Get a coach like Jessica who can help you with that walk through health, from unhealthy to healthy. This is Kathleen Gage with the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. And Jessica, it's been delightful having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. You're awesome. So thank you so much for having me.
You bet. And to everybody out there, really look at what you're doing in your life and see how you're contributing to your own health and the health of the family members and the friends that you have, and do what you can to make the world a better place. This is Kathleen Gage, wishing you a great day.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.